Have you ever noticed that holding on to certain habits is quietly stealing your peace after 70? As we age, we often hear about what we should start doing: eat better, walk more, take our pills. But rarely do we talk about the opposite. What should we stop doing after 70? What are the habits, beliefs, and silent burdens that we've carried for too long? The truth is, letting go can be more powerful than holding on. Whether it's trying to meet everyone's expectations or brushing aside our own needs, many of us are still stuck in patterns that made sense decades ago, but now quietly rob us of joy and peace. In this video, we're going to walk through 8 things to stop doing after 70, not because you've failed, but because you've earned the right to stop. Each of these things may seem small, but together they create the space you need for a freer, lighter, and more meaningful life. And no, this isn't about giving up. It's about growing into the most authentic, peaceful version of yourself. Stay with me until the end, because these aren't just empty tips. They're reflections based on real life, deep psychology, and the lived wisdom of many older adults. You might even find that 1 or 2 of these speak directly to something you've been quietly battling inside. And if they do, take it as a sign that maybe now is the time to finally let go. Number 1, pleasing everyone. One of the most exhausting things you can do in your 70s is try to keep everyone happy. For many of us, it started early, saying yes when we wanted to say no, agreeing to keep the peace, going along to avoid conflict. And over the years, that pattern became so familiar, we stopped noticing it. But here's the thing: at this stage in your life, you don't owe anyone your silence, your time, or your energy if it comes at the cost of your peace. You might think, but I don't want to disappoint people. That's a kind and generous instinct. But when your need to please others outweighs your need to be true to yourself, it slowly chips away at your self-respect. People-pleasing isn't just tiring, it's a form of self-abandonment. And after 70, every day matters. Every moment of energy counts. Wasting it on obligations that don't align with your values or desires isn't noble. It's unnecessary. Psychologically, many older adults fall into this trap because of long-standing patterns. You may have been the caregiver, the fixer, the one who always made holidays happen or settled the family tension. Letting go of that role might feel like losing part of who you are, but roles are not identity. And just because something has always been that way doesn't mean it should continue, especially if it's burning you out. There's also a deep fear behind people-pleasing, the fear of being left out or unloved. We think if we stop giving so much, people will stop coming around. But the truth is, those who care about you will remain, even when you set boundaries. And those who disappear were never there for you, only for what you gave them. That realization can hurt at first, but it's also incredibly freeing. I once knew a woman named Linda, 76 years old, who had always hosted family dinners. Every Sunday, rain or shine, she cooked for 12 people. She was proud of it, but also deeply tired. One day, she told her family she needed a break. She was nervous, worried they'd stop coming. To her surprise, they didn't. Her daughter started hosting instead. Her grandson brought dessert. The love didn't disappear, it evolved. And Linda got her Sunday afternoons back. So if you're still trying to keep the peace, meet everyone's needs, and never say no, I invite you to pause. Ask yourself, is this something I want to do or something I feel I have to do? If the answer feels heavy, that's your cue. Letting go of the need to please everyone isn't selfish. It's self-respect. And at your age, you've more than earned that. Number 2, ignoring your body's signals. One of the most common and dangerous habits people carry into their 70s is brushing off what their body is trying to tell them. A little dizziness, just tired. Shortness of breath, probably nothing. That nagging pain in your side, it'll go away. But here's the hard truth. After 70, your body doesn't whisper for no reason. It's speaking to you, sometimes urgently, and ignoring. It can be a costly mistake. For decades, many of us were taught to tough it out. We didn't want to be seen as complainers. We didn't want to bother the doctor. We thought, if I just wait, it'll pass. And sure, when we were younger, sometimes that worked. But the rules change with age. Recovery slows down. Risks increase. And what used to be minor can now spiral into something major if we don't pay attention early. Psychologically, many older adults avoid acknowledging new symptoms because they're afraid of what it might mean. We fear diagnosis. We fear hospitals. Sometimes we even fear losing independence. But ironically, ignoring the signs is what often leads to losing that independence. When you catch things early, you have more options, more time, and a better chance of preserving your health and your lifestyle. I remember talking to Robert, a 79-year-old retired mechanic. For weeks, he ignored a recurring chest tightness. He said it only came when climbing stairs, so he just avoided the stairs. One day, his daughter noticed he was out of breath just getting out of a chair. She insisted he see a doctor. It turned out he had early-stage heart failure. But because they caught it early, treatment made a real difference. Within months, he was back to walking around the block every morning. Imagine how different that story would have ended if he had waited. So if you've been pushing aside strange symptoms or downplaying your pain, it's time to rethink that. Your body is not trying to annoy you, it's trying to protect you. Listening to it isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And you've earned the right to treat yourself with care, attention, and urgency when needed. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 3, holding grudges from the past. If there's one thing that silently weighs down so many older adults, it's the unspoken pain of old grudges. A sibling you haven't talked to in years, a friend who let you down decades ago, a marriage that ended badly, or a parent who didn't know how to love you properly. These are the kinds of emotional wounds that don't show up in medical charts, but can affect your health, your sleep, and your ability to feel peace as the years go by. You see, holding on to anger doesn't punish the other person, it punishes you. You carry that tension in your body. You replay the moments in your mind. You rob yourself of peace that could have been yours long ago. And here's the part most people don't want to hear. Even if the other person was wrong, even if they don't apologize, you are still the one carrying the weight. And after 70, that's just too heavy to keep dragging around. Psychologically, grudges give us a false sense of control. They allow us to say, I'm not letting this go until they admit they were wrong. But the truth is, we may never get that. Some people never say sorry. Some don't even realize how deeply they hurt us. And some aren't even here anymore to make things right. If you wait for others to fix what they broke, you're putting your emotional freedom in the hands of someone who may never come back for it. And make no mistake, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean saying what happened was okay. It simply means you're no longer willing to give your energy to something that keeps stealing from your present. Forgiveness is not a gift to the other person, it's a gift to yourself. It's choosing to say, this pain doesn't get to control the rest of my life. There was a man I once met named Harold, 82 years old, who hadn't spoken to his brother in over 30 years because of a falling out over a family will. They both grew old, raised families, lived just miles apart, and yet never saw each other again. Then one day, Harold had a minor stroke. While recovering, he told his daughter he regretted never patching things up. She called her uncle. The two brothers met a week later. There were tears, silence, and eventually laughter. They never got those 30 years back, but they got the ending they both wanted, peace. So take a quiet moment and ask yourself, is there someone you're still carrying inside? Someone who hurt you, disappointed you, or left you behind? If so, maybe it's time to loosen your grip. Not for them, but for you. Because at this point in your life, peace is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And letting go of old pain is one of the kindest, strongest things you can do for yourself. Number 4, saying I'm too old to learn. There's a quiet lie that sneaks into many of our minds as we get older. The belief that learning is something for the young, that after 70, your brain isn't as sharp, or it's too late to pick up new skills. Try new things or adapt to changes. You might hear people say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But let me tell you something. That old saying is not only wrong, it's harmful. Because the moment you stop believing you can grow, you start shrinking. Our brains don't stop learning after a certain age. In fact, research shows that the brain remains capable of forming new connections well into our 80s and beyond. It's called neuroplasticity. But just like muscles, your brain needs exercise. When you tell yourself, I'm too old to learn, you're not just closing a door, you're locking it from the inside. The problem is, many of us confuse discomfort with incapacity. Sure, learning new things can feel frustrating, especially when technology changes every week or when we have to ask for help. But struggling doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're stretching. And stretching is exactly how we stay mentally strong, engaged, and independent as we age. There's also a powerful emotional component to learning. When you learn something new, whether it's a new recipe, a language, a hobby, or even how to use a smartphone, You're reminding yourself that you're still in motion, that life hasn't passed you by, that you still matter in this world and can contribute to it. That's not just good for your brain. It's good for your soul. I think of Eleanor, a 75-year-old woman I met at a community center. She had never touched a computer in her life. Her grandson offered to teach her how to send emails and look up family photos online. She resisted at first, said it was too complicated, too modern. But eventually she gave in. Within a month, she was sending little notes, searching up old music she loved, and even watching videos on how to knit a new pattern. Her face lit up every time she talked about it. Not because she mastered technology, but because she rediscovered the joy of learning. Letting go of the belief that you're too old doesn't just open up new knowledge. It opens up confidence, creativity, and connection. It tells your mind you're still alive, and there's still more for you here. So if there's something you've been putting off learning because you think the time has passed, consider this your invitation. Whether it's something big or small, allow yourself the freedom to be a beginner again. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 5, saving everything for someday. There comes a point in life when we need to stop waiting for the right time to enjoy what we already have. How many times have you caught yourself saying, "I'll use the good china when we have guests," or "I'll wear that outfit when there's a special occasion"? Maybe you've been putting off traveling somewhere, calling an old friend, or even sitting down to enjoy a favorite meal by yourself with candles and music, saving it all for some future day that never quite arrives. But after 70, the time to wait is over. Someday is today. You see, many of us grew up during times of hardship, economic struggles, wars, family sacrifices. So we learned to be careful, to hold on, to conserve. And that was a strength. But if you're not careful, that same habit of delaying joy becomes a weight. It teaches you that pleasure must be earned, that enjoyment is extravagant, or that your comfort can always come second. But what if you've already earned it? What if now is the moment you were waiting for? Psychologically, this habit of delaying enjoyment is tied to something called deferred happiness syndrome. We tell ourselves, "I'll relax when the house is clean, when the grandkids are settled, when the weather is better, when I feel more energy." But the truth is, those perfect conditions rarely line up. And when you postpone joy long enough, it becomes a habit, one that keeps you from truly living. I once knew a gentleman named Frank, 81 years old, who had a beautiful collection of wines. He kept saying he was saving them for the right moment. But year after year, he never opened them. Finally, after a health scare, his daughter visited and said, "Dad, what moment are you waiting for?" That night, they opened one of his finest bottles. Nothing major happened, just laughter, stories, and connection. But that night became a moment worth remembering, and he never waited again. The truth is, joy doesn't need to be justified. You don't need an excuse to use the good towels, wear the nice sweater, or take a walk just because the sun is out. You don't need to earn your right to rest or beauty or delight. At this stage of life, those aren't indulgences. They're essential. So look around your home. What are you saving? Look inside your heart. What are you postponing? If something brings you joy, if it makes you smile, if it helps you feel more alive, don't wait. Because if not now, then when? Letting go of someday is one of the most powerful things you can do. It invites you to stop measuring time by calendars and start measuring it by meaning. And sometimes the most meaningful thing is the simple pleasure of honoring yourself today. Number 6, comparing yourself to younger people. One of the most exhausting things we can do after 70, often without even realizing it, is compare ourselves to the people we used to be. Or worse, to people who are decades younger. You might find yourself looking in the mirror and thinking, "I used to have fewer wrinkles." Or watching someone jog down the street and thinking, "I used to move like that." And little by little, these comparisons can eat away at your self-worth, making you feel like you're somehow less than you used to be, or than others are now. But let me ask you, is that really fair to yourself? You are not 40 anymore. You're not supposed to be. You've built a lifetime of experience, resilience, and perspective that a younger person hasn't even begun to touch. Comparing yourself to your younger self is like comparing a majestic oak tree to a sapling. Different stages, different strengths. One isn't better than the other. They're just not meant to be the same. The real trouble with comparison is that it distorts your perception. You see someone younger and only notice their smooth skin or faster pace. But you don't see their insecurities, their lack of wisdom, the nights they lie awake trying to figure out who they are. You see your own past through a rose-colored lens, forgetting that even in your youth you had doubts, fears, and struggles too. Memory tends to smooth out the rough edges. So when you compare, you're not seeing the full picture of them or of yourself. Psychologically, comparison is rooted in something deeper: fear of irrelevance, fear of being left behind, fear of not mattering anymore. But relevance doesn't come from youth. It comes from presence, from being engaged in your life now, with the people around you, with the things you care about. When you stop comparing and start embracing who you are today, that's when the magic returns. I once met a man named Thomas, 78, who had been an athlete in his younger years. For a long time, he avoided reunions and gatherings because he didn't want people to see how much his body had changed. But eventually he went to one, and to his surprise, people didn't see weakness in him. They saw strength. They saw a man who had lived, who had stories, who showed up even when he felt vulnerable. That moment shifted everything for him. He stopped measuring his worth in muscle and started measuring it in meaning. So if you catch yourself scrolling through old photos and feeling sad, or looking at someone younger and feeling less than, pause. You're not that person anymore, and that's not a bad thing. And none of that should be minimized just because your hair is grayer or your step is slower. Letting go of comparison means choosing to see your value in the present, not in the past or someone else's mirror. It means honoring the version of you that exists right now, the one who's still showing up, still learning, still loving, and still living. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 6 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 7, isolating yourself. After 70, it can be surprisingly easy to slip into isolation. Not necessarily because you want to be alone, but because life slowly starts making it harder to stay connected. Friends move away, some pass on, family gets busy, and before you know it, you're spending most of your time alone, convincing yourself it's just easier that way. But here's the truth: isolation is one of the most dangerous habits in later life. Not just emotionally, but physically too. Human beings are wired for connection. Even those of us who enjoy quiet time or identify as more independent still need meaningful interaction. After 70, maintaining relationships isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. Study after study shows that social connection directly affects memory, mood, heart health, and even how long we live. In fact, loneliness has been linked to increased risks of stroke, dementia, and depression. That's not just emotional impact, that's biological. The tricky part is that many older adults don't even realize they're becoming isolated. You might say, I talk to the cashier, or my son calls once a week, and yes, those moments count. But they don't replace deeper, ongoing, emotionally nourishing connections, the kind that make you feel seen, understood, and valued. And the longer you go without those, the easier it becomes to settle for silence. Psychologically, isolation can create a feedback loop. The more alone you feel, the less motivated you are to reach out. You worry you'll be a burden, or you tell yourself, they're probably too busy. So you wait for someone else to call first. But they may be thinking the same thing. This quiet standoff leads to days, weeks, sometimes months without real conversation. And with each passing day, your world feels just a little smaller. I remember a woman named Janet, 74, who lived in a small apartment complex. She used to be very social, but gradually stopped attending gatherings after a knee injury. She told herself she'd go back once she healed fully. She started watching more TV, eating meals alone, and stopped answering the phone as much. One day, her neighbor knocked and invited her to a small potluck. Janet almost said no, but something in her said go. That night changed her. She didn't just eat and laugh. She remembered what it felt like to belong. She started hosting coffee mornings in her building once a month. And you know what? Her energy and mood improved dramatically. Letting go of isolation isn't just about being with people. It's about being open again. Open to connection. Open to being cared about. Open to being missed. That might mean making the first call, accepting an invitation, or even just chatting with someone at the pharmacy a little longer than usual. You never know which small moment could grow into something meaningful. So if you found yourself drifting into longer stretches of silence, take that as a gentle signal. You are not meant to live your life in a bubble. Your stories matter. Your presence matters. And somewhere, someone would be grateful just to hear your voice. Don't wait for the world to come to you. Reach out, even a little. That one step might be more powerful than you think. Number 8, being afraid to ask for help. One of the most quietly damaging beliefs many people carry into their 70s and beyond is the idea that asking for help means weakness. For decades, you might have been the one others leaned on, the problem solver, the caregiver, the provider. So the thought of needing help, whether it's with groceries, technology, transportation, or even emotional support, might stir something uncomfortable inside pride, fear, even shame. But here's the truth. Asking for help isn't a failure. It's a form of wisdom. You've spent a lifetime building resilience, but strength isn't about doing everything alone. Real strength is knowing when to lean and being brave enough to do it. After all, asking for help is not about dependence. It's about connection. It's about acknowledging that we're human and that sometimes we all need a hand, not because we're broken, but because we're alive. There's a quiet fear behind this reluctance. Many older adults worry that asking for help will make others see them differently, as frail, incapable, or a burden. And that fear can run deep. So instead, they stay quiet. They struggle to open jars, suffer through tech issues, or silently endure loneliness. But what often happens is this: loved ones don't pull away when asked, they step forward. And when they do, something beautiful happens. A bridge is built, a bond deepens. You give someone else the chance to feel useful, trusted, and important. There's also a powerful psychological shift that occurs when you allow yourself to receive. It reinforces the idea that your needs matter, that you are still worthy of care, attention, and support, not because of what you give, but simply because of who you are. This isn't about giving up control. It's about accepting that interdependence, not independence, is what truly holds communities and families together. Take the story of Glenn, a 77-year-old man who used to fix everything around the house himself. One winter, the heating system started acting up. But instead of asking his son, a contractor, he tried patching it up alone and ended up making it worse. When his son finally visited, he said, "Dad, I wish you had told me. I would have come right away." Glenn replied, "I didn't want to bother you." His son looked at him and said, "You're never a bother. You're my dad." That moment changed how Glenn saw things. From then on, asking for help didn't feel like defeat, it felt like love. So if you've been pushing through quietly, afraid to ask, telling yourself you should be able to handle it, stop and consider this. Maybe asking isn't a sign of decline. Maybe it's a sign that you trust someone, that you're willing to stay connected, that you believe you're still worth showing up for. Letting go of the fear of asking for help doesn't make you weaker. It makes you more whole. And it sends a quiet, powerful message: I still matter. My needs still matter. And I am not alone. Final thoughts. By the time you reach your 70s, life has already taught you so much about love, loss, courage, and change. But perhaps one of the most powerful lessons still waiting to be learned is the art of letting go. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean surrendering to age or fading quietly into the background. No, letting go means choosing peace over pressure, freedom over fear, and truth over outdated expectations. The habits and beliefs we've talked about today, people-pleasing, ignoring your body, clinging to old grudges, doubting your ability to learn, saving joy for later, comparing yourself to the past, isolating from others and fearing the need for help, they don't disappear overnight. These are deeply rooted patterns, some planted decades ago. But what matters now is this: you can choose something different. You can choose to release what no longer serves you, and in doing so, make room for what does. Ask yourself honestly, which of these spoke to you the most? Was there one that made your chest tighten a little or brought a memory to mind? That's not by accident. That's your inner wisdom tapping you on the shoulder, saying this might be where the healing begins. And healing, even in your 70s or 80s, is not just possible, it's powerful. It's a gift you give to yourself and to the people who love you. Remember, this stage of life is not about fading, it's about refining. It's about becoming clearer, lighter, more honest, and more at peace than ever before. And sometimes that transformation doesn't come from what you add to your life. It comes from what you finally allow yourself to let go of. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.